and we've got a couple of topics that we're going to be going through. So I'm going to ask Luisa to kick us off, first of all, on where are we actually seeing value from AI at the moment?
Thanks, Ray. And it's certainly a very big question, so I don't think I'll crack it in the next couple of minutes as I introduce this debate, but keen to share some of our experiences and some of the lenses we apply to identifying value. And it's really important because it doesn't just apply to Gen AI, but tech overall, and making sure that we're really focusing on spaces that are going to increase our understanding or our efficiency, and not just chasing tech for the sake of tech. As an innovation lead, the last 18 months have been exciting. It's been a juggling act in terms of both leveraging the capabilities and new opportunities that Gen AI have presented, but also just dealing with the daily bombardment of new ideas, new suggestions, new inquiries from clients, and not least the new plethora of solutions that play in this space, with many tech suppliers purporting to have the next big thing, the silver bullet that's going to revolutionize how we do insights. So being able to cut through that to focus on where we need to go as a business and how we can best support our clients has been absolutely essential. So this has required us to almost build a filtering process to identify where value can come into play. So the first level filter actually for us is through our AI governance team, is making sure that we're focusing on solutions or capabilities and suppliers where we can be absolutely confident in the safety and security that the tech is going to bring. So the baseline level, that applies an immediate filter that we can apply to help with a degree of focusing. And where we've then identified solutions to progress with, we need to quickly get into a trial, an experiment, to lift the hood and better understand where this might support additional capabilities or take us in a new direction. Our actual strategy and focus as a company is another core lens here in terms of that filtering process. So making sure that we are really honing in on the solutions that will help in the product development and testing space has also helped us really have another lens on what value will look like, as they will provide a game changer or a step change in those areas in particular. What I have definitely experienced over the last 18 months and through speaking to many suppliers, trialing lots of solutions, both internally and with third parties, is the importance to have absolute clarity around what you're hoping a new AI solution will achieve. And that's the only way to truly determine value. Rather than hoping for a silver bullet or an AI solution that will solve all your innovation challenges, having absolute clarity on whether you're looking to drive efficiency, richness of insight, time to insight, and using those markers of value as your success criteria against which to assess any experimentation, demos, and pilots. And that gives you a very clear indication of whether a new solution is delivering against what you need, rather than just hopelessly hoping for the best and blindly experimenting, not really knowing what you're measuring. So that's been a really important consideration for us in terms of seeking value. I think another consideration is whether tech can be repurposed. So leveraging the same base technology for different applications to better support our clients with more diverse needs and opportunities. But really, I think my key takeout is making sure that when you are talking to new suppliers or experimenting in new tech, you will only identify whether a solution has value for you as a business if you have that initial clarity on what you're hoping to achieve with it.
So, Luisa, when you're looking at a new piece of tech, how much time does it take for you to come to a view, first of all, whether it's worth an experiment even?
Yes.
And then if you do an experiment, how long before you can tell whether or not, yeah, I think we could use this?
It's really varied, and it depends how big we see the potential opportunity as well, and the difference between eternal efficiency drivers versus capabilities that we want to commercialize and use to support our clients in an outward-facing way. It can be super fast. We've got a multidisciplinary AI governance team who are on hand to support with these early decisions, which is obviously a new team. It didn't exist 18 months ago, but they can quickly help us filter out where we shouldn't be looking which is very valuable, and it avoids wasted effort of lots of different parties trying to investigate further. We also have a team who are dedicated to tech experimentation, our Nova team. So they have questions and rules that they apply when looking at new tech solutions that have transcended generative AI, but again, give us a head start in terms of weeding out new capabilities that we believe offer potential for us and our clients.
Could you highlight one or a couple of innovations that have happened in the last, let's say, 9 months that have definitely made a big difference in a positive way?
Absolutely. And a huge area for us is around conversational AI. And we've built a very strong relationship with our supplier in that space. And we're just still scratching the surface of what is possible. We have an overarching mission to put the human back at the heart of product development and make sure that when we're using AI, it's helping to unlock human stories and the value of the people behind the numbers and the insights. And conversational AI is a really powerful way of doing that. And the stories we've seen coming through from consumers have been so inspiring for our clients. But it's not just the inputs, it's what we then do with that data. And generative AI plays a key role at the back end as well to really synthesize those findings and bring them to life.
Now, not everybody on the call has probably heard the phrase conversational AI. So do you want to just expand on that a little bit for those who may?
Absolutely. Yeah. So probably everyone's heard of chatbots. You might not have all had the most positive experience with chatbots in a customer services context, but this is around using research chatbots to elicit information from consumers. So going much deeper than your traditional open-ended questions within surveys, or even having chatbot-led conversations with consumers, which can happen in their lives in the moment of product usage without stopping them to take part in the survey. It's much more engaging and tailored for the individuals taking part as well. So really helps unlock those human stories.
Sue, you were recently chairing a community circle with quite a good overlap and in a very different time zone. Do you want to summarize what we heard there?
Yes, I for the SMR AI task force, I interviewed Anvaya Sharma, who is from Ipsos in Singapore, and she was sharing her experiences of having used Ipsos Facto, which is their internal product. And I think, if we were to take one takeaway from that is just the saving of time. She was equating, like potentially taking a 9-hour day down to a 7-hour day was the example that she used. And if you can do that on a fairly consistent basis, like it delivers value to the company, but presumably it's also delivering some good value to the person who's doing the job as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, at the moment, a lot of what we're doing is almost incremental to ways we've engaged consumers in the past, but I do see a transition and have a quite clear vision on what research will look like in the future in terms of being much more centered around the consumer, giving them control back in terms of how they respond. And as an industry, our job will be harnessing those insights in a really compelling way to bring them to life for our clients. So there will also be a transition, which will tie in nicely with our next conversation around the skill sets that are required and how we really get the most out of our research team, agencies, and in client side as well.
And maybe just
one question.
Sorry, Sue.
I was going to say, Louisa, I'd be interested in what you think, because you could imagine this value kind of being a trajectory we're on, and say in the short term, you're also having to invest in things like tests and trials.
Yes.
But then also, like if you start to get some, like gains in productivity and time and things like that, but also I'm imagining that you're hoping that occasionally there'll be these big leaps that are more value in terms of, increased understanding, that deliver value to your clients as well. Are you sort of starting to see that path, through the, journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say we're at early days as yet. And I think we're undertaking a lot of experimentation, but our clients are experimenting themselves as well and having very varied reactions to the power of some of the solutions that they are experimenting with. So it definitely is a journey, and we're definitely nowhere near the end of that journey. There's a lot still to learn, but also other implications for company structure and focus areas that will also need to come into line as generative AI opens up new opportunities to do things differently.
And we've got a quick question in the chat, Luisa. Are you using conversational AI for quant and qual?
Yes, and actually I think the real benefit is that it blurs the boundaries of quant and qual. So it allows us to conduct qualitative style interviews at quantitative scale. We can seamlessly incorporate both the qualitative style conversations via the chatbot with more typical direct quant measures. And it's the combination of those two approaches that really gives us both the confidence, but also the richness of understanding.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's move to our second topic. What are the implications for skills and the acquisition of skills of all of this that's going on, Sue?
Well, this is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about, but when I was thinking about, just the short 3 minutes that I'm allowed to talk about now, I was thinking one of the big impacts of AI on skills is actually it's put a real focus on skills. Whilst people have been concerned about, training and keeping up to date and training teams and things, I don't think, if you go back, 2-5 years ago, there wasn't such a focus on what skills people need. So I think it's shining a light on that, which is really nice. But, we do have to think about, well, what will a researcher be doing, like tomorrow and beyond. And so, while we can start to think about what skills, it also requires us to start predicting and forecasting what will research jobs look like in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, going forward. So, I think that's, a really interesting challenge that we have to answer. And I'm kind of thinking we might dig into that a little bit in the panel discussion. If we think about sort of the short to medium term, I think there's kind of, unless you're the sort of person who's going to go and build AI platforms, which, yes, some people will do, but I'm assuming that's kind of a minority of people who are on the call today. I think there's really two broad areas. The first area is an idea I've been calling research thinking skills. And, that's broadly, I think, the skills and knowledge that researchers have that won't be replaced by AI in the short term. It's things like, research craft, foundational research skills, understanding what good research looks like, how you scope questions, research design. And there's also a second component of that, which is, those skills that help us understand research, things like critical thinking, synthesis, stress testing findings, developing hypotheses. And also, things like being able to communicate research findings to clients. Now, AI can do bits of, all of these components, but at the moment it can't pull that package together. So I think, that's a really key area for people, is to think, spend your time developing skills that aren't likely to be replaced by AI in the short term. And then the second area is really, skilling up in AI. Now, again, really broad area. So, pick the things that suit you, suit your company, play to your strengths, play to your interests. But, everybody should be, dipping into, if they haven't already, and continuing developing skills in this area, knowing how to use platforms, understanding, what an LLM is, understanding what conversational AI is. These are, things that people need to be, getting to grips with, things like prompt engineering. And in many ways, researchers are really well placed, to develop these skills, because, asking questions, scoping problems is a core skill. So these are kind of key areas to just, reflect on, how can you use the existing skills you have, develop them, augment them, go deeper in certain areas so that you're well placed to work with AI and do the things that AI isn't doing.
Luisa, how is MMR tackling sort of skill acquisition, retention, expansion?
So it's a big question, and there's lots that we're looking in that space. So there's day-to-day upskilling and encouraging the teams, empowering the teams to experiment and understand the AI solutions, those that we've vetted from an IT compliance, security and safety perspective, to make sure they are flexing those skills and experimenting themselves and learning. I think for all of us, it's been a learning curve. I feel like I've learned a new language over the last year, which is fascinating because it's fueling curiosity and what is possible. But we need to support the researchers to make sure that where there's areas that will save them time or efficiency, that we're prioritizing those to give them the headspace to flex those new skills that generative AI requires.
That's a really nice idea, isn't it? Using one to help you deliver the other.
Yeah. And I think it's about identifying strengths as well and making sure that with an eye on the future, we are marrying up skill sets and expertise and interest and passion to the different roles that might exist in a research agency of the future.
Now, see, you head up a department in the Research Society that does a lot of training, relatively conventional in the sense, if we can call webinars and Zoom meetings traditional, I think we can now. How might that change in the near future?
I mean, it will undoubtedly change in, like lots of different ways. And I think for people working in research, scale is going to be an interesting question, because if you, like for those of you who might play around with, say a Duolingo, enormous companies like that in the learning space, have such access to data that, like they will really start to be able to, fundamentally change the way, some of their learning is delivered. There probably won't be anybody who's got a research training cohort of learners anywhere near the size of Duolingo. But I mean, there will be, invariably options, I think, for things like learning AI and upskilling. I think, people will be dipping into shorter form courses. People probably won't be either lucky enough or have the time or the, and the speed at which we're working, to go to, like 3-day courses or 4-week courses on things. I think what we'll see is people, selecting small modules, like I'm going to learn this, I'm going to tackle, that. And I think with AI, we also are seeing such, constant progress. If you'd done a course on, ChatGPT 6 months ago, you probably then potentially need to go and do it again because things are changing all the time. So I think, readily available solutions that are in, like bite-sized chunks, modularize things where people can pick which bits of things I want to learn. So if you go back to some of my examples, some people will, say, well, I already know a lot about X, but I need to know a little bit more about Y. And, like allowing people to pick and choose. I mean, over time, we will see, AI used, as tools to, like more readily available transcripts of things. It would be nice to get to the point where we're having AI, potentially assessing where you're at and then being able to say, you're really good at X now, but I've picked up some weaknesses in, Z, go and do that. Now, obviously, those sorts of, solutions take, investment to get things up, but, we will do things. And I mean, I could see, Louisa, if you're using these tools well for research, you might be able to, like harness some of those kind of things internally.
Absolutely.
As well. But I mean, I think the speed of change and the need to keep up to date is going to, like be a big focus for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the degree of resilience that's going to be required as well to continuously need to adapt to new solutions, new capabilities, and think about what it means for individual roles as well as our business and our clients' businesses overall. So it's going to continue to be a bit of a roller coaster, I think, but it's an exciting time in terms of what's possible.
Yeah,
well, I think,
and I suppose there's.
Sorry, so
I was going to say Louisa just reminds me that there's 2 ways to think about these things, because one is, if you're an individual sitting on this call, you need to think about, what does it mean for you and your career and your future, but also for businesses, there will be, like more complex, decisions around, well, who is being upskilled on this, and how do we, diffuse these models throughout the organization, as well.
So Adam Grant, I think it is, talks about unlearning quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to have a pretty big impact in this area of using AI, things we won't need to memorize in the future, things we won't need to have to do.
Yeah. Well, I think there's probably a couple of bits to that. Like, sort of when I first think of unlearning, I think of the idea of, like ceasing to remember something that I once knew because it doesn't serve me anymore. But then the other thing is things that you might have wanted to be able to recall from memory that you would now, just look up on the, occasion that you need it. I mean, in many ways, the best skill that almost anybody could have now is the ability to learn new things and know how to learn new things. What's your go-to way, of understanding something now? Like for many people, it's, online videos and things like that. But you need to be able to, teach yourself things, know how you can learn things as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Luisa. Thank you, Sue. That's been fantastic. And we've hit the time buffer, so we're going to move along.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Luisa.